Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2.
世界のすべてを盗んであげるよ。
遅い。待ちくたびれたよ。
これでいいのか?
Ash quietly drew me close by my shoulders. The cityscape at sunset was so gorgeous, I was momentarily lost for words. The world around us was aglow with the stunning hues of the sinking sun. A beautiful coffin, if we let our pursuers have their way. It was simply terrifying. The sound of moving vehicles and guns clicking into place served as our ticking clock. My legs shook beneath me. The idea that we were up against the special forces weighed heavily on me. If we failed, the others would be shot.
怖いか?
My beloved soft, gentle voice called out to me. I gazed up at him. I wasn't afraid of riding the motorcycle or running away from the police, nor was I afraid of dying. What scared me most was the fact that I could lose the person I loved.
アッシュさんが一緒なら。アッシュがいるから怖くない。
I spoke to him openly, courageously, hoping it would boost my morale and prevent regrets should the worst come to pass. Ash stiffened at the sudden shift in my tone. I saw myself reflected in his sorrowful eyes. His eyes were just so lovely, though. As they drank me in, I knew that I would fear nothing in this world so long as we were together. Because I love Ash. I loved Ash.
絶対に死なないって約束して。何があっても自分の命を一番に考えて。お願い。
Losing a loved one was more painful than having your body torn to shreds. Ash smiled warmly at my request.
俺からも頼みがある。
His fingertips lovingly caressed my cheek.
生きてくれ、ミカ。俺はお前が好きだ。
His voice was quiet as a whisper. I could feel his affection and a hint of his resolve.
だから一緒に死ぬって結末はなしにしよう。どうせ俺とお前では行く先が違うからな。
I had no response to that. Why didn't he tell me we'd always be together? Or why didn't he tell me we'd always be together, even in death? Why did he think we would go to different places in the afterlife? His gentleness in that moment only made it more painful for me. As the sun sank over the horizon, we shared our first kiss. A kiss that could very well be our last. Chapter 16, Ash, Grey Wolf. Italy, Rome, September 14th, 2028, 1941, Thursday, derelict building. The sun had finally set. Gib warned us that we might be shot if we left the building, so we split up and hid in different spots. One by the pile of debris on the first floor, another at the back of the second floor stairs, one on the rooftop, one between the gaps of a broken wall. While the others distracted the special forces and the snipers, Ash and I would escape on the bike. Ash and I sat on the bike, ready to go at the first opportunity. The SD card was in my left pocket. I had borrowed Sally's powder compact to store it so it wouldn't break along the way. If we failed, the evidence would be snatched away from us. Even if we managed to escape, there was no guarantee we would be able to get it to Rebecca. So to be on the safe side, we had a plan in mind. Rebecca was waiting for us at the rendezvous point, trusting I would bring her the evidence. But there was a risk that Crown had found out about the location, in which case Rebecca would be in danger. For her to safely and successfully deliver her unbiased news report, I had asked her for a favor in advance. We needed to get out of here first, though. Otherwise, everyone's efforts would be for nothing. I heard rapid footfalls as the police stormed into the building. The mission had begun.
察のおじさん、助けて。
Sally stood near the entrance, acting as a hostage to draw the raiding force's attention. It was possible we were banking on a miracle here.
人質と思われる少女を確保。犯人の捜索に移ります。
ちょっとおじさん、抱っこしないで。
Sally kicked and wriggled when a policeman picked her up. As they focused on her, a loud clatter came from outside. It was Kamu's doing. He was tossing wreckage out the window from his hiding spot on the second floor. The raiding team received instructions over the radio, then rushed to where Kamu was. At the same time, Hamiel tossed debris in the opposite direction they were headed.
今だ。行くよ。
ああ、
Rami jumped out of the window on the other side of the building to confuse the police. With that as our signal, Ash sped off. Ash sent the bike soaring over the rubble barricade and out of the building. The police were on their way to Rami, but they jerked to a stop in a panic at the sight of us. The raiding forces were already inside the building. The police obstructing our escape route were regular officers. They only had handguns. Ash accelerated even more. He used the wreckage as a ramp, launching us into the air. Now that the raid forces weren't with them, the police could only gape at us in shock. When they came back to their senses, they aimed their weapons.
待て、発砲するな。
Ironically, the one controlling them was an agent of Crown. Perhaps they had orders not to hurt me. We aimed for a gap, breaking through the tight blockade. Patrol cars and motorcycles pulled out behind us immediately.
止まれ、止まりなさい。
Despite the desperate cries from behind us, Ash zipped skillfully through the police cars, taking a roundabout route. Eventually, we reached the railway crossing. The gate lowered right in front of us, and an overnight freight train headed for the crossing. If the train blocked our path, we might get caught. Ash sped up even more, outpacing my concerns.
捕まってろ。
Can we even make it? Our bike whizzed just under the crossing gate. The train's cacophony of noise blared ever louder as it raced towards us. The very second we finished crossing the railway, the freight train passed through. With the train in the way, we could no longer see the patrol cars behind us. My heart pounded like a drum from the sheer intensity of our maneuver. Yet Ash held the handlebars with a calm look on his face.
無事か。
はい、なんとか。
I nodded, and Ash breathed a sigh of relief. I never imagined we'd take advantage of a running train to escape from the police. Ash kept going at full speed, not daring to slow down. The two of us were off to meet Rebecca at the rendezvous point. Italy, Rome, September 14th, 2028, 2003, Thursday, Arena Ruins. Our destination was the ruins of an arena. Although the entrance was typically closed at night, it was open for us. That was thanks to Rebecca, who negotiated with the staff to shoot in this location. We entered the arena and looked for Rebecca, but found someone else instead.
ようやく到着なされましたか。待ちくたびれましたぞ、お客人方。
The house steward, what are you doing here?
やっぱり読んでいやがったか。
It was house steward, not Rebecca, who stood before us.
私どもにはコンサートマスターという情報戦のエキスパートがおります。我々の裏をかけるとは思わない方がよろしいかと。
Bracing myself, I took a step back to protect the evidence in my pocket. We had already anticipated Crown predicting our movements, so we'd come up with a handful of plans and stayed on our toes. I scanned the area. The tiered seating overlooked the center of the structure. There were also several arch-shaped passageways and gateways. We had plenty of escape routes.
レベッカさんはどこ？
まだお着きになられていないようですな。おそらく道が混んでいるのでしょ
う。どうせてめえらが足止めしてんだろ。
我々にはフットマンという忠実な手足がおりますからな。
Footman is another? Oh, we haven't even met this person. House Steward held his cane sword at the ready, the same weapon that killed Genevieve.
それでは SD カードをいただきましょうか。おとなしく差し出していただければ こちらもことを荒立てることはいたしません。
House Stewart extended his free hand, the other still brandishing his blade. His message was clear. We had no choice but to give him the evidence. Sending Ash a silent signal, I slid my hand into my right pocket. I retrieved an SD card and walked up to House Stewart. But then I reached out, gripping the SD card in my fist. I was essentially forcing him to touch my hand if he wanted to snatch it from me.
渡す前に聞かせて。あなたはどうしてハートフィールドさんを殺したの？ジェヌビエーブのように忠誠を誓っていなかったの？
私は我が主の命に従うのみ。私の主人はチャンセラーただお一人でございますから。
どうしてチャンセラーに忠誠を誓うの？ジェヌビエーブがハートフィールドさんに救われたように、あなたも彼に救われた過去があったの？
After priming his memory, I placed the SD card in House Stewart's palm. My fingertips brushed his hand. Right then, I was swept away by a rapid stream of visions. I learned of their origins and his deep loyalty. Among them was the memory of the day House Stewart began serving Chancellor's household. That memory taught me two key pieces of information, House Stewart's real name and the Chancellor's as well. Johannes Weissman, Vincent Smith. The moment I learned those names, I let go of his hand. Ash grabbed me from behind and yanked me towards him. We retreated a step, with me using him as a shield.
はて、何をなさいましたか?
Holding the SD card in his hand, House Stewart, or rather Vincent Smith, glared at me. His cane sword clattered to the ground.
あなたから教えてもらっただけ。あなたとチャンセラーが一体何者なのかという情報をね。
I know, it's such a generic name. Yes, exactly who they were, as in their real names. I was not as dexterous as Rami, nor did I have hacking skills like Sally, but I had an extremely niche power that got me chased to the point that I was fed up. Surprisingly, real names provided swaths of information. If they popped up in civil registration records, they could help us expose the truth. A name could turn up a person's background, or even better, a record of homicide charges.
ヴィンセント・スミス、あなたたちの悪事を暴いてみせる。ヨハネス・バイスマンがモナークを殺したことを。
Whirling towards the arena seats, the only renovated part of the structure, I loudly announced this information to a long-gone audience.
アッシュ、
Ash and I darted out of the arena, luring out House Stewart. No, Vincent Smith. Vincent ran after us. He was on his guard, shocked by our inexplicable behavior.
お待ちなさい。
He blocked our way, looking unusually panicked. It seemed the name I shouted earlier was truly his real name.
やはりあなたは危険だ。魔女だと我が主人に私は再三申し上げておりましたのに。我が主人のもとへ連れて行くにしても口と手さえ動けばよろしいでしょう。お覚悟を。
Vincent struck out with his cane sword, landing a severe hit on my back. The impact had me tumbling to the ground. He drew his blade, aiming for my legs. The metal glinted in the dim light.
させるかよ。
Ash grabbed the handle of the cane and kicked him away. Ash tugged the cane to bring Vincent closer, then gave him a ferocious headbutt. Vincent staggered backward just as Ash landed an uppercut on his chin, still gripping the cane. Having no choice but to let go of his cane, Vincent leapt back to avoid Ash's punches, but Ash took full advantage of the abandoned weapon. He slammed the tip of the cane to the ground, breaking the blade into pieces. Then he used his knees to split the cane in two. Ash threw the broken cane to the ground, spit on it, and laughed fearlessly.
これで殴り合えるな。
老人から杖を奪うとは感心しませんな。
喧嘩でてめえの獲物をぶち壊すのは 上等手段だろ。
Ash brought his fists to face level. The battle had begun anew. While Ash kept Vincent preoccupied, I had my own task to attend to. I turned towards the audience seats, the same arena I'd hollered to earlier. There was someone behind those stone seats, the very person we were supposed to meet. I sprang to my feet and made a mad dash for the seating area. Vincent glanced at me with a gasp.
何を。
レベッカさん
When I called her name, Rebecca jumped out of the shadows.
まだお着きになられていないようですな。おそらく道が混んでいるのでしょう。
The roads weren't packed. Rebecca wasn't stuck in traffic at all. She'd been here ever since we holed up ourselves in the abandoned building, long before Vincent came to ambush us.
天峰さん
Vincent spun around and came face to face with something shiny. It was the lens of the broadcasting camera Rebecca carried over her shoulder. Rebecca did the broadcast all by herself, from the beginning to the end. She hadn't brought her cameraman with her.
ご覧ください。彼がローマで起きた殺人事件の容疑者、ヴィンセント・スミス氏です。本日、犯行の証拠を入手したとの連絡を受け、私レベッカ・ロスはこちらで待機しておりました。果たして本当に証拠はあるのでしょうか。現場からお届けします。レベッカさん、これがローマでの殺人事件の証拠です。
まさか。
Vincent rushed forward to stop me, but Ash quickly grabbed his legs.
行かせるかよ。
I slipped past him, reaching inside my left pocket. This was where I'd kept the SD card containing the evidence. The one from my right pocket, which I handed over to Vincent, was an SD card from my surveillance camera in another location. I dashed through the arena's entrance. Then Rebecca and I hopped into the OB van waiting outside. We inserted the card into the card reader, letting the footage play live on her broadcast.
その動画の19時17分のところです。
Rebecca hurriedly fast-forwarded to that moment in time and pressed the play button.
ご覧ください。こちらがたった今入手した犯行現場の防犯カメラ映像です。
Of course, they are broadcasting a murder, but okay. The screen showed a video of that restaurant in Rome. Mr. Hartfeld was enjoying his meal, reaching his hand out towards me. At that very moment, he was stabbed in the back. Vincent Smith was the one who murdered Mr. Hartfield. After the execution, he was seen speaking to Wiseman, who was standing nearby. Evidence of the murder was finally broadcast to the whole world.
皆さん、ご覧いただけたでしょうか。先ほどの映像は犯行現場のレストランの防犯カメラに映っていたもので。
Right then, the OB van shook violently. The power cut out, plunging us into total darkness as the van shook again. A powerful impact from outside put a big dent in the door. Vincent had come for us. With one door broken, we opened the other and leapt out of the vehicle. Is it really Vincent, or is it somebody else?
Mika!
Ash ran out of the arena ruins. His face stiffened when he saw us.
走れ！こっちだ！
The gravity of his voice compelled us to sprint to him. Mere seconds later, the van exploded. Oh, okay. I turned around to find the OB van on fire. Just like the transport vehicle that carried us on that fateful day, the flames from the van lit up the night sky.
なんてことなの。
Vincent emerged from the flames. He was bleeding and he had a split lip. Ash must have hit him pretty hard. He trudged toward us, breathing heavily. His neat suit was disheveled.
真正面。
The small knife he'd used to kill Mr. Hartfield was in his hand, the same weapon we'd seen on the footage earlier.
今さら何しても無駄よ。真実は報道されたんだもの。
我が主人を恥ずかしめた罰を受けるといい。
Rebecca's voice didn't reach him. Vincent raised his knife towards me, eyes shining with madness and despair. Brimming with fierce bloodlust, he came to kill me. He swung the blade down. At the same time, Ash came running up from behind me. Ash raised his arm to shield me from the blow. The knife dug into his right arm. Blood splattered everywhere, and Ash groaned softly. Despite that, he remained calm. Even with blood in sight, he looked coolly upon House Steward. Blocking the blade with one arm, he grabbed it with the other.
いい加減観念しやがれ
Using his free hand, he wrenched away the knife. He then threw it to the ground so Vincent couldn't reach it.
若造がなめるなよ
Vincent just wouldn't give up. He abandoned his manners and lashed out. Then he reached into his pocket, taking out another dagger. Okay, well, I guess it makes sense that he has more than one. When he went to throw it at me, Ash socked him in the jaw, hard. Vincent went flying, his eyes rolling back in his head. He dropped his weapon, tumbling a few times until his head plunged into a nearby bush, or into the nearby brush. Yet it wasn't enough to keep him down.
我が主人のために魔女を
うるせえよ
Ash grabbed him by the collar and glared at him with pure, unadulterated rage.
魔女だバカがこいつは普通の女だろうがいい加減てめえらの都合で振り回すんじゃねえよ
Ash punched him as hard as he could. Vincent collapsed to the ground, and this time he didn't get up again.
アッシュ
ミカ大丈夫か怪我はないか
私は大丈夫でもアッシュが
I rushed over to check how deep his wound was. He'd risked his life to protect me. Tears filled my eyes as I tried attending to his injury, but he cradled my head instead.
もう大丈夫だ
欧州警察だ
Investigators from Europol had arrived on the scene. They must have come as soon as they saw Rebecca's broadcast.
おとなしく武器を捨て
誰も武器は持ってませんね
Inspector Dulce and Officer Noel were dumbfounded when they saw Vincent lying on the ground, with Ash and I embracing each other. I hopped away from Ash in a panic. He averted his eyes, looking somewhat embarrassed.
まったくあなたたちは邪魔をしてくれるときはあんなに早いのに来てほしいときに遅いんだから
状況を聞いていいかね
いつものやつよ私の中継を邪魔しに来た輩がいるのでもこれまでとは違ってバッチリ全世界に証拠は流せたわ
Despite the situation we were in, Rebecca showed them her phone screen with a smile on her face. Lots of comments were being made on social media. One read, Canal Zero has been cut off again. Another said, is it the real culprit's doing? From ordinary citizens to conspiracy theorists, countless people were discussing the news and posting screenshots of it. The murder scene, as well as Weissman's face, were plastered all over the media. It was safe to say that we'd established the truth of the matter.
で逆上した犯人が襲ってきたんだけれどそこの彼が冤罪の被害者である彼女を命がけで救ったとこよ押村区は今のが中継に載っていなかったってところかしらね視聴率が取れそうだったのに残念だわ
Rebecca shrugged. The two investigators exchanged glances. Soon enough, they realized the murderer was lying on the ground, unconscious. They took him into custody right away. At long last, we'd accomplished our goal of unmasking the real murderer. I mean, I'd still be worried about House Steward. He's going to wake up at some point in time. Italy, Rome, September 14th, 2028, 22:31, Thursday. Termini Station. The night wore on. Now that peace had been restored to the city, Ash and I were left alone. To be precise, Europol was keeping an eye on us from a distance.
ようやく終わったな
Ash turned his gaze on me. It was the kindest look he'd ever given me since the moment we met. It brought a fresh bout of tears to my eyes. After receiving first aid, Ash had asked Europol to give him an hour. He promised he'd turn himself in afterward. As for me, I'd be under Europol's protection while I participated in their questioning and investigation. They cleared my name now that they had evidence of the real murderer. That didn't mean the others could walk away freely too, though. Since they were all criminals from the start, they would be punished according to the law. Ash had been charged with assault and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. I didn't understand why he had to spend that much time behind bars to atone.
アッシュ逃げよう
Those words escaped my lips before I thought better of them. The last vestiges of my conscience and reason argued that I shouldn't succumb to such temptations. But if we could, I wanted us to run as far away from here as possible.
お前、
私なら平気アッシュさえいれば
I knew it all too well that I had no right to say this, but I couldn't help myself. Unable to hold back any longer, I burst into tears.
アッシュが捕まらなきゃいけないなんて
バカだな、お前は。
Ash wiped them away with a wry smile.
俺らに罪を重ねるなって、お前が言ってたんだろう。もう罪を犯さないって決めたんだ。お前のために。ずっと追われるようなクズ野郎じゃなくてさ、お前を幸せにできるような人間に俺がなりたいんだ。だから罪を償ってくれ。
He caressed my cheek, his smile growing wider. His radiance was unfathomable.
ミカ、愛してる。
For the first time ever, he was straightforward with me. All the strength drained from my body, and I couldn't respond. I stared blankly up at him like a fool, and then he kissed me tenderly, as if to steal away my crying for good. It was a light kiss, but his warm love for me shone through. He stroked my hair, then turned around. Only then did I realize there was a patrol car parked next to Europools. Ash made a beeline for the patrol car, where the police were waiting for him. He was going to leave. I had to stop him. I reached out on impulse, but stopped midway. He'd made his decision, and it was one with my future in mind. Thus, instead of grasping at him, I spoke the words he needed to hear most.
待っているから
It didn't matter how long. I could wait for his return forever if that's what it took. I loved him that much.
アッシュ私ずっと待ってるから
Ash didn't say a word. He just turned back to me and smiled. He leisurely raised a hand, a sign that he vowed to come back to me. Two and a half years went by. I drove the motorcycle to the prison. Today was Ash's release day, so I was on my way to pick him up. After proving my innocence, I returned to my university and reunited with Ida. I managed to resume the ordinary life I was longing for. My classmates were so kind, it almost made me cry. They were all happy to see me again. Given the circumstances and the police hiding the evidence that proved my innocence, I only had to pay a small fine for the crimes I'd committed on the run. After I graduated, I moved to Baden and lived with Ash's mother, Carla. Oh, interesting. Huh? Carla still lived in the past, but sometimes she would say something like, "When Ash returns." I was convinced it wouldn't be long till she regained her memories. I arrived at the prison in no time. I stopped the bike and took off my helmet. A familiar face awaited me.
ミカ、
My words didn't come out. I ran over and leapt into his arms. The warmth of his touch brought tears to my eyes.
アッシュ会いたかった
His arms wrapped around my back, pulling me close.
俺もだ。お前に会いたかった。
Ash's voice was so lovely. Hearing it in person brought back memories. His clumsy, gentle grip was tentative at first. Then he squeezed, holding me tight.
ミカ、ミカ。
He called my name over and over, relishing in the fact that he could see me again. Knowing how good it felt, I spoke his name countless times as well. It was like I was making up for all the days I couldn't say it.
迎えに来るって言うから、てっきりバスか何かだと思ったんだが、まさかバイクで来るなんてな。
練習したの。いつもアッシュに乗せてもらってばかりだったから。
Back when we were constantly on the run, Ash was always the one in the driver's seat. That's why I decided to take the wheel to pick him up.
お前は本当に。
Ash tightened his hold on me. It didn't seem like he would let go anytime soon. His embrace was a celebration of our long-awaited reunion.
もう話さなくていいんだな。
はい。
手紙や電話だけじゃなくていいんだな。
はい。
Ash had returned. He whispered into my ear, making it feel all the more real.
ただいま。ミカ。
おかえりなさい。アッシュ。
We snuggled up to each other, sharing our warmth. We told each other we'd be together forever, vowing that our love would never change. Oh, I wish they wouldn't use fade to white. Why not fade to black? Gonna blind us, you know. Yeah, that was a nice, pleasant ending.
「もうどこにも逃げなくていいんだよな。お前が一緒にいるだけで世界がこんなにも輝いて見える。俺の世界を変えてくれてありがとう。
Okay. Oh, really? Episode 1 is Ash? So they want us to do this Ash, Hamiel, Gib, Rami, Camus, Sally. Sally's the last one they want us to do? That's interesting. Extra content contains the post-ending story. Please enjoy after clearing the happy end. Extra content does not allow you to save mid-game. You gotta go through all the way. I don't know how long this is either. I don't know if it's like a really long after story or what. Extra content, after story Ash. Celebration. A few months after Ash was discharged from prison, the two of us were making our way to Rotenflu on a motorcycle. Since our lives had started to settle down, we decided to visit Daniel to thank him properly. Oh good, we do get to see Daniel. Maybe because it was his first long-distance drive in a long time, Ash looked delighted as he handled the bike. Seeing him like this made me joyful too.
どうした？
ううん。本当に楽しそうに運転するなって思って。
そうか？
はい。
そうか。
Apparently, that cheery face he was making had come subconsciously. He sounded surprised, but happily so. His gaze was warm.
そうだな。確かにスピードを出して飛ばすのは好きだ。自由になれた気がするからな。
Flying at speeds he wouldn't be able to go on normal roads, Ash's eyes softened with contentment. He looked just like a bird soaring across the boundless sky. Released from his status as a fugitive criminal, he drove carefreely, having obtained true freedom.
ありがとな、ミカ。
急にどうしたの？
I looked up at him quizzically, wondering what he was thinking about. The corners of his lips quirked up.
俺を待っててくれただろ。正直、出所する前に愛想つかされたらどうしようかなんて思ってたんだ。
I never knew that was weighing down on his mind. He'd never displayed any insecurity, not even once. Even though I was the closest person to him, I was completely taken by surprise by this confession.
でもお前は待っててくれた。母さんと一緒にさ。俺が出所して家に戻った時さ、母さんが俺をアッシュって呼んでくれただろ。多分お前が母さんのそばで俺を待ってくれていたおかげだと思うんだ。
Carla had used her son's name when she welcomed him home. After years of being confused and convinced that Ash was her husband, she finally embraced the reality and moving forward one step at a time. She returned to her old workplace from back before her traumatic break. Naturally, it was a bumpy road, but now she lived life with a smile. Like a happy family, the three of us were enjoying an ordinary, routine life that had once been a luxury out of reach.
今の俺がこうしていられるのも全部お前がいてくれたからなんだ。だからありがとな。
He repeated that sheepishly before accelerating the bike. It's just like him to choose this moment to say it. It must have constantly been on his mind. But it was too embarrassing to say it face to face, so he mentioned it nonchalantly as he drove. But it was so like him that I couldn't fight back a smile of fond exasperation. Would he sulk if I called him cute? The bike raced down the road like a gust of wind. A dazzlingly clear azure sky stretched above us. I know, this is a very happy end. Switzerland, Mountain Village, July 12th, 2031, 14:08, Monday, in Daniel's house living room. A few hours later, we arrived at our destination without incident. When we knocked on the door, Daniel received us with a big smile on his face.
おお、二人ともよく来たな。連絡をもらってから今かと待っていたところだよ。
お久しぶりです、ダニエルさん。
さあ、入っとくれ。しばらくは泊まっていけるのだろう。
はい。せっかくなんでお世話になります。
あの時は本当にありがとうございました。
Handing over the souvenirs we'd chosen together as a thank you gift, we walked in. It'd been a long time since we were last in Daniel's house, but I found myself relaxing as if I were right at home. Warm sunlight trickled in through the windows, glistening as it brushed fluttering dust. The door closed and pleasant peacefulness embraced us. We weren't fugitives anymore, and we'd atoned for our crimes. Nevertheless, to us, this was a reassuring fortress that protected us from the outside world. Except for those nosy-ass neighbors, huh? After that, we had a very lengthy catch-up session over tea. Daniel told us that after learning I'd been falsely accused, all the villagers had been so astonished it was the hottest gossip topic for nearly half a year. The villagers were remorseful about how they had forcibly searched Daniel's house trying to cash in our bounty and begun visiting him frequently. In return, I shared stories about my university and what happened after Ash was released from prison. We never ran out of topics as we talked on and on.
そうかそうか。元気そうで何よりだ。
ダニエルさんもお元気そうでほっとしました。
あ
あ。まだまだくたばらんよ。まだやることがあるからな。
やること？
ああ、二人がまた来たら聞こうと思っとったことがあるんだが、二人とも結婚式は挙げたかね？
Ash choked spectacularly. He almost spat out the black tea he'd just sipped. His cheeks flushed crimson as he glanced briefly in my direction.
いや、まだです。なんていうか、俺には早い気がして。
なんじゃ、愛し合ってるのに早いも遅いもないだろう。恋人同士なんだろう。
はい、一応そのつもりです。
True, we were dating, and ever since Ash's discharge, we'd been living in his family home just like a pair of sweethearts. But we hadn't thought as far as marriage yet. Only a little over a year had passed since my graduation and mere months since Ash's release and homecoming. Our everyday life had been changing constantly. We hadn't started to think about the future yet when we were still getting a handle on our new present.
どうだ、やらんかね。
そりゃ、できるものならしたいですが。
Ash stole a glance at me. His desire for a wedding was plain on his face. For the first time, I started to think about one too. A wedding, huh? Things had settled down to the point that we could take time to visit Daniel. I had to admit that I felt my heart flutter when I considered it. What kind of ceremony would we have? How would life change if we became a married couple?
実は前にも一度言おうとしたが、 うちの村には有名な礼拝堂があるんだ。それで二人がもしまだ式を挙げていないって言うならどうかと思ってな。ここでやるならわしも手伝えるしな。婚礼衣装も息子夫婦がやった時のもんがある。
Oh, did we ever find out what happened to his son and his daughter-in-law?
婚礼衣装。
ああ、ちょうど背丈もよく合いそうだ。どれ、今出してきてやろう。
Daniel left to go into the room of his son and daughter-in-law and fetched a large storage box. Inside was a gorgeous wedding dress with intricate lace and embroidery. It must have been hand-sewn. I could tell that the seamstress had stitched it with great care and best wishes for the wearer.
綺麗。
Oh, okay, that's right. They died in an accident. It's beautiful. Yeah.
式を挙げるとなると、どのみち衣装も必要だろう。だから、もし嫌じゃなければどうかと思ったんだが、よく考えてみたら、せっかくの結婚式だというのに、こんな古臭いドレスでは気が進まんよな。
そんなことありません。とても素敵です。でもこんな大切なものをお借りしていいんですか？
ああ、もちろんだ。あとはアッシュの方だが。
Ash's eyes were stapled to the dress. He was frozen in place, utterly speechless, but it was evident that he'd taken a liking to the dress at first sight.
似合うだろうな。
Ash let slip a small, subconscious whisper to himself. I heard it loud and clear, however, and I saw the way his eyes lit up. Daniel and I traded knowing glances.
よし。じゃあ決まりだな。アッシュの衣装もあるぞ。
Daniel was so eager for the impromptu wedding that he jumped right into explaining all kinds of wedding-related things. From details about how weddings worked in Switzerland to the famous chapel that was near his house, Daniel prepped us from A to Z. Our conversation veered from sharing what happened while we'd been apart to plans for the future. It was sudden, but since a chance to step forward into our future fell into our laps, we simply had to take it. A seed of happiness was blooming in my heart. After we finished dinner, and Daniel went to rest for the night, I was looking over the wedding dress he'd shown us earlier in the day, checking whether there were any adjustments we needed to make so it'd fit well. Maybe I should get them to tighten this part a bit. I held up the dress against my body and scrutinized it carefully, placing marking pins in a few key places. Ash is taking a long time. Still holding the dress, I shifted my gaze outside the house. After dinner, he'd gone to the barn, saying he wanted to service the bike and hadn't yet returned. Perhaps he'd gotten absorbed in tinkering and lost track of time like he usually did. Maybe I'll bring him some herbal tea so he can take a break. When he got into the zone, Ash was the kind of guy who'd forget to rest until he passed out. I set aside the dress for now, brewed some tea, and headed out.
アッシュ、入っていい？
なあ。
Switzerland Mountain Village, June 12th, 2031, 2311 Monday, Daniel's house, barn. I walked into the barn, and sure enough, Ash was immersed in maintaining the motorcycle. Beneath the lantern light, he fiddled with the engine, his tools in hand. The scene seemed both familiar and fresh at the same time. Ash was here, right in front of me. That little fact made my heart swell. I still hadn't got used to everyday life with him by my side.
悪い。考え事しながらやってたらつい没頭して。今終わらせる。
大丈夫。
なんだ？
アッシュってやっぱりバイクが好きなんだなって思って。ここで見てていい？
なあ。でもそんな楽しいもんじゃないぞ。
アッシュは楽しいんじゃないの？
そりゃ俺は好きなことをしてるから楽しいが。
だったら私も楽しいよ。アッシュが好きなことをできるのが嬉しいもの。
I sat down on a nearby bundle of hay and watched over him. Just like I thought, his profile, illuminated by the lantern, revealed an expression brighter than the light itself. Once he finished what he was working on and settled down, the two of us enjoyed the herbal tea I'd brought. We sat shoulder to shoulder on the haystack, and I gazed at the motorcycle in front of us absent-mindedly. As you would expect from a bike with such an attentive owner, it was well polished. It shone brightly in the dark, reflecting the lantern light.
うまいな。
Ash smiled with satisfaction as he finished the tea. For a while, we enjoyed just sitting there in each other's company. Spending time in silence like this wasn't unpleasant at all. In fact, it was extremely relaxing. And the tranquil quiet was made all the more special by the gentle heat against my shoulder. During our fugitive life, this warmth had guarded my heart countless times, stopping it from buckling under all the crushing pressure. The person I loved so much was beside me. Another wave of relief and reassurance washed over me.
ミカ、
When I heard my name, I lifted my face and stilled, seeing Ash leaning closer to me. He cupped my cheek and drew me in, gentle but forceful. Before I had the time to shut my eyes, our lips met, still moist from the tea. Our hot breaths brushed each other's cheeks, and after a moment's delay, heat gathered inside me. My heart pounded. We'd been so busy lately that we hadn't had time for intimate moments like these, and now suddenly we were all alone together.
アッシュ
I placed the mug in my hands onto the floor and looked at him shyly. The lantern was dim. Were my cheeks red enough for him to notice my blush even in this lighting?
ミカ、今更だってのは分かってるんだが。
He faltered, his hesitation palpable, but then he swallowed his nervousness and looked at me earnestly.
結婚しよ
Oh. Hearing that, I realized for the first time that we hadn't gone through this step at all. We'd agreed with Daniel about the wedding, swept in his excitement, but forgot to check in with each other.
う。悪い、なんか全然カッコつかなくて。指輪とかも用意できてねえし。
そんなこと。
でも普通はそういうのきちんとやるもんだろ。
He roughly ran his hand through his hair, looking frustrated at himself.
急にやることが決まると思ってなかったんだ。それに俺なんかに結婚する資格があるのかまだわかんねえし。
His eyes wavered as he looked at me before looking down. It was the gaze of a person who was afraid of himself. It was the same gaze he'd had when he confessed his feelings for me once upon a time.
俺はお前を幸せにしたい。親父みたいにならないって決めた。だから罪も償ってきたんだ。それなのに本当は怖いんだ。俺がまともになれてるのか自信がない。
アッシュ
多分さ、じいさんにああ言ってもらえなきゃお前になかなか言い出せなかった気がする。いや、じいさんも俺がそういうやつだって分かってたのかもしれないな。だから多分あんな言い方したんだ。
He frowned, looking at a loss. Nevertheless, he fixed his eyes on me, and soon determination took over.
でも決めたんだ。お前を幸せにしたいって。だからお前さえ嫌じゃなければ俺と結婚してくれないか。
He was smiling, but I didn't miss the minute trembling in his hand as he cupped my cheek, and so I hugged him as hard as I could.
嫌なわけないじゃない。
じゃあ
はい、アッシュ結婚しましょう。
He hugged me back with all his strength. I inhaled his soft scent as much as I could. It was the scent of the person I loved most. It was a relaxing scent which I adored, reminding me of a cozy blanket after a long day. He loosened his hold around me just enough to look in my eyes. Happy tears clung to his lashes, just about to brim over. Overwhelming emotion had rendered him speechless. The corners of his eyes softened, and he shook his head slightly.
ミカ。
He kissed me again. Everywhere he touched me, I could feel his affection for me. It radiated from his body. this taciturn man was communicating his feelings through his lips. He spoke my name with yearning, his way of saying that he loved me so much.
Mika. 好きだ。
Ash whispered it softly with his forehead pressed to mine before he hugged me tight again.
ハッシュ。
必ずお前を幸せにしてみせる。
The flickering light of the swaying lantern lit up his heated gaze. He stared deep into my eyes. His sharp features often caused the misunderstanding that he was sour, but I knew he had the sweetest hearts in the world.
お前のウェディングドレス姿を見るのが楽しみだ。
As he breathed those words into my ear, I felt the wondrous arrival of happiness in our life. With the next stage of our life on the horizon, Ash and I stayed over at Daniel's house while making preparations for the wedding.
それで当日なんだがな。よければここでホームパーティーでも開かないか。
ホームパーティーですか？
ああ。と言っても、そう大勢呼べるような家じゃないが、呼びたい友人もいるだろう。
Friends. The first people who came to mind at that word were the 5 who'd been on the run with us. But unlike us, they were still fugitives at large. Was it all right to invite people on the wanted list? Feeling troubled, I looked at Ash. He must have been thinking the same thing because his expression was as conflicted as mine.
そうですね。できれば友人は5人と、あと俺の母親を呼びたいんですが。
He said friends too. Ash thought of them as friends as well. I was so overjoyed that I couldn't fight off a smile.
私も同じ人が呼びたいです。あと、私の父も。
Just after I said it, however, uneasiness crept up on me. Would he truly come? We'd been estranged for so long now. I'd ultimately left Japan as if I were running away, and I hadn't contacted him in a long time, so I felt more awkward than anything else. While I'd been a wanted fugitive, he hadn't contacted me either, not even once. I'd like to invite Ida too, but that's probably not a good idea since the others are still criminals. Though I had a few troubling things to figure out, the 3 of us steadily drafted up a list of guests. Like that, we spent our time preparing day by day. When we contacted Carla, she was over the moon and excited to participate. I never received a reply from my father, but our teammates from our life on the run said they'd come. It was going to be a small ceremony, but the most important people to us would be present. We got more fired up than ever before with that confirmed.
これはこっちに置いていいのか？
ああ、待て待て。それはこっちで。
One day we busied ourselves with decorating Daniel's place in preparation for the after party.
ミカ、味見してくれないか？
あともう少し砂糖を入れた方がいいかも。
ワインはこれでいいかね？
多分平気だと思います。俺は飲めないんで確認頼んでいいですか？
なんじゃ、アッシュは飲めないのか。珍しいな。
Another day we practiced cooking the dishes we wanted to serve.
いや、もうこれでよくないか？
ダメです。アッシュは足が長いんだから、もう少し裾を調整しないと。
And another day, we adjusted the measurements of our wedding outfits and prepared the rings we'd use for the ceremony. It was coming together, step by step. Our hectic but blissful preparation period rushed by, and finally the big day arrived. I asked Daniel to stand in for my father, and now I slowly walked down the aisle. At the end of my path was Ash, dressed up in his wedding tuxedo. I was about to say, they're going to show us. I released Daniel's hand in front of the altar and accepted Ash's offered one. This was the hand of the man who would soon become my husband. As he laid his eyes upon me, Ash smiled serenely, looking happy from the bottom of his heart.
綺麗だ。
I was spellbound by the sight of him so overjoyed, and so euphoric that I was the source of his happiness. I should have been used to seeing all kinds of expressions on Ash's face by now, but it was as if I'd met him for the first time all over again. Under his escort, the two of us walked forward until we stood in front of the priest. The priest spoke the rites with all the solemnity the occasion called for. We squeezed each other's hands as we listened to him recite Bible verses. However, there were sneaky whispers rising up from the sidelines. Sally and Rami were the culprits.
ねえ、これいつまでやるの？
腹減った。早くご飯食べたいんだけど。
Oh, of course these two would be impatient.
お前たち、今ぐらいは静かにしろ。
だけど、アッシュのこんな姿は一生お目にかかれないだろうな。
ええ、バッチリと録画しておきますよ。もちろん 4K で。
Their usual banter filtered into my ears. No matter when or where we were, there were things that never changed. I was so elated and amused that I almost let out a chuckle.
では、お二人の結婚の誓約を執り行います。
Okay, well, unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour, so we're gonna have to stop it here. This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2. This will be the last thing I cover for Despera Drops. I know there are other stories, but gosh darn it, I have other visual novels we need to read. And we'd be at this for like the rest of the month and probably into next month, covering all the other stories. So yeah, definitely pick this game up for yourself. I recommend it highly. I wish more people talked about it. It's really well done. This is like probably the most like Hollywood type of ending and relationship. But I think it's a good way to end our coverage of this game. Maybe at some point in time we could visit it again in the future, but like I said, I've got a ton of other visual novels to cover, so we'll leave it here. But we'll still do Otomi stuff. That's been fun, and hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. Anyway, this is meowmurai, and I will see you at the next stream.